So, Francis, thank you for agreeing to have this small chat with me. Of course, you know, this is part of a series called Mind Talks. And in this series, what I do is I talk to leaders like yourself, and we try to get into the mind of the leader. What did you do? Why did you do it? What really got you your best results? Something like that. It's a very informal chat, Francis, so feel free to stop me anytime. Feel free to correct anything I say. It's just like we are chatting, over a cup of tea.
Fantastic.
So for those of you who don't know Francis Lobo, I know him from the time he was a young kid. Church youth group, Catholic club youth group, and most importantly, I enjoyed my times playing snooker with him. So here was a youngster who I taught some tricks to, but then finally he ended up teaching me a lot of tricks on the snooker table, mind you. But many years later, now I'm saying, what is this? That was 1992. So almost 38 years later, we are now in a chat where Francis has been president, CEO, CFO, chief revenue officer for WeWork. I mean, a lot of different things. But why me tell you the story when Francis can tell it to you himself? So Francis, there's a long gap we have to catch up on. Can you give us some snippets of who Francis Lobo really is and what he's doing?
Absolutely. Ian, thank you for having me on Mind Talks as well. I'll give you the short version. You tell me where you want to jump in a little bit more. But as you say, I grew up in Bangalore, Commerce College, Catholic club, a lot of mischief on Brigade Road, Symphony Theatre, Galaxy, so on and so forth. I worked with my dad a little bit, and then I came to the US to do my MBA, and I joined a go-to-market strategy consulting firm, which was fantastic. Long story short, I chose to come back to India. India was home. I wanted to come back. And I started my first company in India. And I realized that as much as I wanted to be, I may not have been the smartest entrepreneur in the world. But I did well. I was able to partially sell that company after 2 years. And then I was in this interesting position, Ian, and this is where I believe I have a little bit to share. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get a job in Bangalore.
Wow.
I'd worked in the US. I had started a company, sold a company. I was 28 years old. I couldn't get a damn job. Wow. I went on over 30 or 40 interviews. And one guy actually told me, he said, "You're too young for the position." I was actually too young for jobs I was qualified for. And I was overqualified for jobs that I was the right age for. So in the end, finally, I said, I'm going to make my own way. And I met through a friend of mine, I was introduced to AOL, and I joined their call center in Bangalore, in ITPL, in the night shift. And I learned very quickly that if you are able to find out what you are good at, if you're self-aware what you're good at, it can take you the way. I don't know if you know Tim Ferriss, but
yes,
one of the quotes of Ferriss was that, the superheroes in your mind all have walking flaws who maximize just one or two strengths. But anyways, I was able to find out that I was good with advertising relevance. Don't ask me why, but I was. And through advertising relevance, I came up with ideas that made a little money from the call center in AOL. And to cut a long story short, in 6 years, a year later, I moved back to the US with AOL because I came up with an idea that made a lot of money for the company.
Wow.
And 6 years later, I was one of 4 presidents in running the company, wow, reporting to the CEO in New York City. But it came from finding good people, learning from them, but finding out what you're good at and leveraging that. After that, I was blessed with luck, and I learned one thing I'll share is which I learned that in life, we are given countless opportunities. It's for us to see it, grab it, and make the most of it. It's us. So I'll give you a silly example is when I actually became a president at AOL, my boss, who was a senior vice president, got let go. And then he lived in Virginia. And while his entire team was flying to Virginia, I called him and I said, "John, I hope you don't mind. Everyone's coming to see you for your farewell party. you're friends for me for life. I'll come see you at home, but I got to go to New York to meet with the CEO.
Wow.
And I went there and I went to the office and I stayed outside the office at 7 o'clock in the morning because I knew the CEO came in early, happened to run into him in the lobby, hung out with him till 9 o'clock, and by 9:15 the job was mine.
Wow.
But opportunities come your way and you have to grasp them. After AOL, I was there for 10 years. I got recruited to be the CEO of United Online, which was a large public company in LA. I wanted to be on the West Coast. From there, I met Adam Newman, the CEO of WeWork, through a friend. And one thing, I joined WeWork and became their global chief revenue officer. And from there, I recently moved to Dallas 2 years ago and joined Mr. Cooper, a mortgage refinance firm, where I was for a little over 2 years and recently resigned. And now, for the first time, I'm no longer CEO, CFO. I am cleaner, tuition teacher, and proud menial manual laborer in my house. But it's the best job I've ever had. That's the short version of my long story.
Wow.
Long
You
version.
look good for the wear. So, Francis, that's like a, I don't know, it's like a magical story, man. I just, okay. Yeah, so this, I want to get back to the point where, you were at this stage where you said 40 interviews and no job.
Yes.
Some places you were too young for the job because you had the qualification, but some places you were, overqualified for the job for your age. And
Yes.
I thought that was so well put. Thank you so much. Now, what went through your mind at the time? See, this is a series called Mind Talk. So my real focus is on getting into the mind of the person. What kept you up at that stage? What gave you that, what can you give us some tips and tricks from then?
Self-awareness and self-belief. Two very, very important things that I carry with me every day. Self-awareness is knowing what you're good at, what you're not. And self-belief is just if you have enough belief in yourselves that you can do it. So as arrogant as this may sound, and I know it is arrogant, every time someone rejected me, I walked away saying, man, I feel for these guys. They made a mistake.
Of course.
And listen, I had a lot of rejection. I tried to move to Australia. I didn't get a job there. I tried to move to England. I didn't get a job there. And I came back to India. And I will admit, I got introduced to the vice president who was running the call center through a friend. And I didn't get a job. And I said, you know what? I took matters into my own hand. This is like, you have to do this at some point in life. And I said, give me 24 hours. Let me spend 24 hours in your call center. With your permission, I'll sign an NDA. At the end of it, I'll come and tell you how I'm going to make you look good. How I'm going to make the call center more efficient, more better, with a plan 24 hours.
Daring.
And I did that. And that's why he gave me a job.
Daring. Wow. So that is the kind of hack I'm looking for. You had it in yourself and you took this challenge on. And I'm sure he could have said, come on, cut the crap. We don't need a kid like you to come and tell us what to do. But something in you, maybe it was your passion, maybe it was your self-belief that made him think, let's give this guy a chance.
Yeah.
Let's see how this works. So I really, wow. That is.
It's something very simple, Ian, that I'd like to share a small little nugget, which for me is changed my life completely. And anyone who can make this little nugget, if it works for them, a habit, will change their life. Always have a goal present.
Always have a goal.
Whatever you do, have a goal. A stupid example, I used to be that grouchy fellow. If I'd go for dinner with my wife and the food took too long to come, I'd be like, hey, waiter, where's the food? I was that guy, I'll admit. Now my goal is to have a nice dinner with my wife. So if the food takes longer, what's my goal? Have a nice time with my wife. Doesn't matter, I have more time to spend with my wife.
Wow.
So in every opportunity, you have a goal. So in this time when I met, his name was Manish Dheer, the vice president of AOL at that time in Bangalore. When I met Manish Dheer, you know what my goal was? Get 24 hours in the office. Then self-belief will kick in. In the 24 hours, you know what my goal was? Make sure I can show him I can make it this much better. Then when I get the job, you know what my goal is? Prove myself. In everything, verbally tell yourself, you know what my goal is in this conversation, Ian? Have a chat with you after a very, very, very long time, and learn something from it. So have a goal present. So it doesn't matter whether you got 10 rejections or 100. You go in the next meeting with your goal and do your best to achieve that goal.
So fabulously put. Thank you so much. So Francis, one of the things that I remember about you in the early days, you're a very likable guy. You know, somehow you were not, you didn't come across, yeah?
Nobody told the girls that.
Nobody told the girls that, no, but the girls knew that. The girls knew that, Francis, you were such a likable guy. I mean, you didn't portray yourself as the smartest guy, but now looking back, you know, a lot of people should have seen the smartness in you. I did. You know, when I talked to you about snooker, I could figure out here's a guy who's actually brilliant inside. But you were not displaying that consciously outside. And that's really probably what happened in those 40 interviews. You know, so you just take everything like it's okay, it's okay, it happens to everyone, and everyone has these qualities. You're so nice and humble. So maybe that has cost you in the early days, but I think once you got your positions in place and once you proved your worth by getting revenues in place, I think that changed things. So give us one change point in your life that you worked. I mean, this was what, getting the job and getting to prove yourself and getting back in the corporate world again. Is there anything else on a personal level or otherwise where you felt this is what I changed and this is what really got me a lot of results?
The day I made a commitment, for me personally, I keep my most prized possession in the world is this little black book where, you know, you probably hear this every day. Everyone hears many, many great sayings, many, many things. Oh, if I could do that, if I can do that. For me, I write it in this book, and I read this book 3-4 times a week, because any lesson you learn, always have a goal present, right? That is my first page, my mission statement, my personal mission statement. So to create things, when I learned that it's very easy, if you turn something into a habit that you live, then it becomes reality. So I write it in that book if it's something I want. So for me, I know this sounds silly, but the first day I got this book, I've had this book by my side for 15 years now, is a very important one. And I'll share one line with you. It is, you know, be the cause of your life, not the result of it.
Wow.
And if you can just take that line to be the cause of your life, not the result of it, it becomes so much more easier. But to answer your question directly, professionally, there were 3 jobs I got the way I got that job, you know, where I went and proved myself. Marrying my wife is the biggest life-changing moment for me in so many spectacular ways, because, you know, she makes me a better person. Definitely my children, those are obviously, I've seen your wonderful posts with your children, especially the proud, you know, dad of late. Absolutely, those are life and game changing. But my first CEO gig was a big one. I learned a lot of good lessons the hard way, but just realizing, and this has happened multiple times, that everything is easy. Ian, I don't know if I ran into you in December, but I'll give you a silly thing. 45 years, I could never lose weight. Little bit here, there, little bit. The last 5 months, by taking the same approach, I've lost 17 kilos.
Wow.
Just by, you know, putting that down and going. I'm not sure the relevance, but those are all multiple things that lead you. It's a journey. I mean, I could give you many individual examples, like the AOL job, or my children being fired, being let go from my first job when September 11 happened. The whole company went under, and I was on a H-1B visa in the US, and I was like, sorry, you got to go back. And, you know, your world comes crashing down. But thank God I went back. I wouldn't have met my wife otherwise.
Wow.
You know, so, you know, just putting, you know, taking it one day at a time. You know, one door closes another. It's easy, actually. It's not easy. It's, if you can learn to be positive and look at the bright side and have a goal in everything you do, it works out.
Awesome. So Francis, putting this whole picture together now, I'm thinking, here's a guy who's ultra smart. He tries to come across like he's an average guy next door, but ultra smart guy. I really love the way your mind works. I want to get into this part. Why would Francis Lobo resign as president and then take this 1 year sabbatical? What really are you planning to do? Because you're the guy who's a goal setter. You said start everything with a goal. This 1 year
Yes.
sabbatical also was definitely goal oriented. So tell us something about that if you don't mind.
It's very, very simple. It's very simple, Ian. You know how many people, when they're 70 years old, say, I should have spent more time with your kids. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this. Go write yourself. I challenge anyone to do this, including you. Anybody. Go tonight and write your own obituary. That speech you give in church. How you want to be remembered by. And then see, is the life you are living the same as that? If I go and I can do 100 jobs, and if I whatever build the next Amazon, I whatever, go and be really successful, but I want people to say he was a great dad and I'm not. It's just, what is the first page in my book, Ian, I'll show it to you. This part is mostly just for you, but this is my life mission statement: to be the best husband, father, friend, and leader. Which means there are 4 quadrants in my life. I have to be good for me, for my family, for my community, and my professional life. My last 3 jobs, I worked 12, 14 hours a day. It's great for my professional life. What was I doing for the other 3 quadrants of my life? So I believe, keep my fingers crossed, when the time is right, I will get the next adventure. And if it doesn't happen, I worked hard enough that there's no rush. But I can tell you, as awful as 2020 has been in many ways with COVID, and 2 weeks ago, my closest friend in Bangalore passed away with a sudden heart attack at 45.
Wow.
It's been a many very, very difficult year, but there's also been some beautiful, beautiful things. I've spent so much quality time. This summer, I taught my kids to swim. They're both fantastic swimmers. They're 6 years old and 4 years old. And so I diversified the goals of my life beyond professionalism, beyond just professional. And so I want to be a better husband, father, and friend as well. So I'm spending a lot of time in those areas for now.
Okay, so Francis, there's something that I also help people work this work-life balance, and your 4 quadrants. So each one has different quadrants.
Yes.
My small submission now is, it's okay for Francis Lobo. I mean, you've made a ton of money. You've proved yourself. You've got all the check boxes done, right? It's okay for you to take a 1 year off and say, okay, I want to spend time with my kids. A lot of people on the planet don't have that opportunity, or they never reach that level where they can take this opportunity.
Yes.
So is there some way that, you could give a general tip for the rest of the world? I mean, you're blessed in a lot of ways. But for the average person, it's very difficult to take a 1 year sabbatical.
I understand.
So what would you say to them? I mean, would there be something else, other hack that you could share?
Two mindful, 2 words come to mind. Being present and being grateful. So yes, I've taken a year off, hopefully a year to be with my family exclusively. But if you are present, and if you are being mindful of your presence and build a mindfulness of being grateful, you don't have to take a year off. It's the small moments. Don't bring work home, for example, a silly thing. Right. I always meditate for even 5 minutes when I come back from work. I used to meditate. I know this sounds scary. Don't try this at home, in the car on the way home. But what I was doing was leaving the stress, and I would put happy thoughts that when I'd come to the door and my kids come to greet me, bam, it's worth $1 million, even if it's, just 15 minutes before they're going to bed, which was often the case. So be present in those moments. Throw away your damn phone. I keep my phone on one table in my house when I'm playing with my kids. It's never within 6 feet of me. I put the ringer off. I choose to do that. I can call people back. I told you today, if my son's giving trouble and I take a little longer to put him to bed, I might be a couple of hours late. But be present and be grateful. If you are grateful for the things you have, that it's the same thing. You don't need a year off. You need 15 minutes or a meal or a hug, and that appreciation is very plenty.
That is so well said. Okay, what's your wife saying about this 1 year sabbatical?
She loves it. She's put me to work, man. Yeah, yeah.
She gets
No,
partner at home now. So,
no,
what she did on her own all this while, yeah.
no, I'll tell you what, in terms of being grateful, Rupa is truly a magnificent woman. She was a very, very successful executive herself, a vice president at multiple large companies in AOL. And when our kids were born, she took a few months off and she went back to work. She got another phenomenal job. And we moved to Dallas now a little over 2 years ago. She decided not to go back to focus a little bit more on the kids. But we genuinely, we do not view life as a mother and a father. We view it as two parents. What I mean by it is, in India, we have a lot of traditions, and I'm not saying anything is wrong. I'm not judging, but there's a role for the man and a role for the woman. It's like my uncle the other day said, "Hey, Francis, does Rupa let you in the kitchen?" I'm like, yes. Like, I'm there more than her, because I love to cook, and even though she's better than me, we both do. But we're leveraging this time at home to work on our relationship as well.
Super.
Yeah. Sorry, long answer for a simple
No, I
question.
love the way you said that. And so you're a romantic guy. I mean, I know this for a long time. I'm not going into details, Francis, so don't worry. Yeah, but you're competitive. On one hand, I used to know how you used to play the game of snooker, and see, those are early indications. And so if I had to look at the whole youth group, let's say St. Patrick's Church youth group,
Yeah.
I could make a lot of predictions then, and I did. And most of those predictions have absolutely been bang on target. And you were one of those, those guys who I really wanted to follow. So I'm glad we are having this chat.
Me
Now,
too.
I want one question which could be a little
Yes.
deep, but I still want to ask it, Francis. You can, say no, I don't want to answer it. So, out of all these different things that you have done, now you even met Rupa. Did you meet Rupa at the office space? Was it like an office romance?
Yes.
It was. So then work, romances do happen. And, I don't know why we make such a big deal out of it. People
Yeah.
are human beings and they're going to fall in love here and there. Okay. And it's going to
Yeah.
happen. So that's fine. But out of all these experiences, and, you talked about work-life balance. Looking back, Francis, what are the 2 or 3 things that you could have done differently? I'm not saying you should have done differently, but you could have done differently. Looking back, we are always smarter, wiser.
I made a couple of professionally. I made one incorrect decision. That was a specific professional decision. When I left United Online, we were in the process of selling the company to private equity, and WeWork made this job offer, and I was like, do I go to WeWork and be a senior guy at the fastest growing startup in the world that's just raising money at $20 billion? Do I stay here and fulfill my obligations? And I made a decision that in hindsight was easy. I learned from it. So I'm not going to say it's a wrong decision. I will say it was a great lesson I learned. That's one thing. But from a work, I know you answered the question about work-life balance. I've always, I literally have no regrets. I know that sounds weird. I've always tried my best. I've worked very, very hard, but I've worked very, very smart. And I've learned to be able to separate my work life and my personal life to some extent. Even that WeWork, it was kind of one and the same. But if I could do anything a little bit differently, I'm trying to think of. I definitely would not. The romance in the office was all perfectly fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. Me personally, as long as it doesn't hamper your
Right.
obligations. Trying to think of what I could have done differently. I listen more. I'll tell you what. This is communication skills, Ian. I was privileged to, when I was at United Online, I was able to hire who worked with me, the world's greatest coach, who also became a very, very close friend. And the lessons he taught me around communication, invaluable. I was a horrible listener. I was a very bad communicator. And when I was a CEO of a company, culture starts with me and ends with us. And if it starts with me and ends with us, if I'm not listening properly, I I learned about effective decision making, that sometimes you're a decision maker, sometimes you're an input giver. Another really, really big thing when you're a CEO or a senior executive, to be able to communicate in a manner to teach people the difference between a recommendation and an instruction. I remember, this is a very short, silly story at AOL. I went to this huge cafeteria, and the way the coffee was served was all weird. It was cups, then sugar, then milk, then coffee. So I told the guy, like, guys, this makes no sense. Just a recommendation. Cups, fill the coffee, put the milk, take the sugar, take the stirrer, take the cap, and go. Put it in that order. And I went. It was just a suggestion. I came back a month later, they had broken the whole thing and reconstructed the whole thing.
Really?
With that order. And so just something as silly as that recommendation was an instruction. But communication, I would learn effective communication. I would learn how to pause and shut up and listen better, the power of the question, the power of the pause. If you don't mind, indulge me in this one thing I'll share. My coach taught me this phenomenal lesson: the difference between memory and thought. Now, here is a really key thing, Ian. You'll love this. Whether you use it or not, you'll absolutely love it. 99% of human beings, 99% of the things they're doing comes from memory. When you drive a car, you change the gear, you press the brake, it's instinct, it's memory. When I ask you, what do you think of Modi, and you answer me something, or what do you think of Trump, and you answer me something, it's coming from memory. It takes 7 seconds on average for a human being to form a fresh new thought. So even if whomever, I don't want to talk politics, but let's say Trump, ask you about Trump and you have something negative in your mind. Even if tomorrow he saved world hunger and changed, if you answer me in half a second, you're coming from memory, not from thought. And so when in a senior leadership, all the best leaders, why are they so quiet? They're thinking. They have mastered the art of forming fresh thoughts, listening, taking data, evaluating it, coming with a new thought. Versus 99% of the time, 99% of people come from memory. And so that's another key thing. So you take all these communication skill sets. I mentioned 3, 4, the pause, a question, better listening. That's something I wish if I'd worked on in my younger days, would have had a lot more value for me.
No, I like this, the new thought concept. I think it's brilliant. The rest of it we normally have in our programs, the power of pause. So we call that POP 1, power of praise. POP 2 is power of pausing. So we give some of these hacks to people and it really changes their life. So now with your permission and your coach, can you give us your coach's name so that we can also, learn something from him, watch his videos, I don't know what.
Yeah. I'll send you a note right afterwards. I'll get you the website and so on and so forth. Phenomenal human being. But
Not
the key
by any chance. Ray Dalio.
No. He's on the West Coast. He has a very small firm, takes very few clients, and you literally become like family with him.
I think it's beautiful.
The best thing he taught me, Ian, through all these lessons, and half this book has come from him, is it's all good to say it. You have to work hard at making it a habit. So whenever he'd meet me every 2 weeks, he'd be asking me of instances of how did you make a gold present? Give me examples. So he made it into a habit for me, which has given invaluable amounts of dividends for me over the years.
Yeah, and your results come from the things that you do, not the things that you think or plan.
Sure. Absolutely.
So well said. Thank you, Francis. That's brilliant. Francis, one question that, always intrigued me. A lot of people, smart guys like you, you go abroad and then you do some magical stuff there. So I know you did some of the stuff here as well. But if you had to give this comparison, and I know it may be unfair to ask this to you, but still, I'm just going to ask it. Do you think really you would have been as successful had you stayed back in India for reasons like, let's say, I want to be close to mom and dad, or I want to be close to my friends or whatever? Can you just share something?
Me personally, absolutely not. I'll tell you why. I think now the India today is different from the India 20 years ago. India 20 years ago, graduating from my college, the highest starting salary in 1996 for someone who got a job in HSBC, which was 5,600 rupees a month.
Wow.
In India, the way to get wealthy is either you have a family, in those days, family business, or you start your own business as a what I call a hired gun or an employee, the potential for growth was not that much. Even Mukesh Ambani's right hand doesn't make as much money as an average, small, relatively good CEO in the US. Um, but my motivation wasn't monetary at that word. My motivation at that time, when I couldn't get a job and AOL offered me to come back to the US with them because I was doing so well, it was like rolling moss. Now, I didn't know I wanted to come back here. Rupa was in India and she ended up coming to join me. But just one thing led to another and momentum took over and then it ended up staying. And now with my children and so on and so forth, I don't know if I see myself coming back permanently, but I see myself spending a lot more time in India. But yes, I don't think for me personally, I would have been able to do many of the same things.
Right.
But I say that with a heavy heart because I still feel like India is home for me and so on and so forth.
No, because I see a lot of guys, like for instance, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella. I don't think they would have been in that kind of position, or even Indra Nooyi,
Absolutely.
if they had remained in India. They would have been, fighting for place and, trying to get a slightly better raise or something, I don't know what.
Yeah.
But when I talk to top level people, some of them, these defining moments that change their life, I think that is also very significant. Yes. I want to go back to the AOL days because I feel some way that accelerated your career. What did you do in AOL when you got a chance to prove yourself there that got you this US position? What did you do to impress them? You said something about revenue, but yeah.
Yeah. So I joined on advertising relevance. I came up with an idea for a product called Web Offers. And the guys in the US said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And so I did it. It was something that had in excess of 99% margins at that time. And in its second year, it made about $40 million.
Wow.
And that was the first idea I came up with. And I came up with about 10 different ideas. So results-based progression is a real thing. When you get results, you get noticed. And so when they said, do you want to come back to the US? My job was literally to find revenue for the company. And in my second year over there, I found another idea that resulted in over 100 million a year in profits. And I started a new little business within the company that eventually in 3 years became almost a $500 million business.
Wow.
So those type of potential, it simply wasn't there in India. And the opportunity, it sounds funny, but you can run faster and grow faster and opportunities more come your way, at least when I was over here at that time. And it was fairly straightforward. I found it straightforward for me.
A lot of things I think come out of that.
Yes.
Even the Silicon Valley story, I mean, there's so many success stories. I know some of my classmates who made it really big there.
Yeah.
And had they been here, they might not have done, not even one.
It's important to clarify, how you define success also, because, if it's purely monetarily, there's just no comparison. There simply isn't, right? There are maybe 3 companies in India that have the same success as just our schoolmates. There are 20 or 100 or maybe more in the US, if you quantify it monetarily. But if you quantify it in other ways, depending on how you define success, most young people end up defining success monetarily early in your careers. But as you grow older, so the impact you can have on society. Some of my classmates, I have tremendous respect for them. Sudhir Krishnaswamy is like a good friend of mine, classmate. He's sitting on the Facebook governance board, and he's the National Law School, whatever, the chancellor or top person there. So that's not monetary success, but that is making real impact. And there is a bunch of that in India. And if we were able to define success a little bit differently, I think more people may have been motivated to stay back, or so on and so forth. But coming straight out of college, it's just money. And most kids that come to the US to study have to pay off debt. And to pay off debt means the motivation is money, which means you have to get a job here because it doesn't work otherwise.
That's true. So do you feel there's still something that Francis would like to do? And is there something like, some of your tick boxes have not been checked?
Yes, I've been getting more and more involved with the different nonprofits in a small capacity. Um, in a small way, a couple of, at least three different nonprofits in India, one that's been active during COVID, another from a fellow Josephite that's doing in a very small way. I've been involved with him. Actually, your brother helped me out with some stuff related to that. And so as time goes along, I clearly know what I want in my career. I've got 5, 6 years of work, maybe a little bit more with me. And then I want to be someone who can be, when I say full time, I don't mean in terms of hours, I mean in terms of focus, um, on giving back in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know what that is yet. I'm working with my dad a little bit on his coconut project, trying to help out there. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So, Francis, I more or less got what I wanted out of you. Is there anything else that, if you had some wide scope to give the world some top 3 tips on success generally? It might not be money, it could be anything. What are the top 3 things that you'd like to leave, listeners with?
I will say, let me just say what I think top 3 things that have helped me the most, because it'll be different with everyone.
Sure.
Number one is always have a goal present. Hands down, best thing that I have ever done. Number two is live your life by acknowledging the 4 quadrants and give appropriate value, time, importance to them. And the third one is that line I shared with you earlier that my coach told me, and it's always stuck with me, and I say it to me, which is be the cause of your life, not the result of it.
Yes.
That's just an amazing one. So every morning when I wake up, I'm like, do I just want to, you get it.
Okay, this last one is really profound, but I want you to give me an example of how this works for you. How are you being the cause of your life and not the result of it? I think your sabbatical is there, but just elaborate.
I'll give you something which is very close to my heart right now because my closest friend in the world died 2 weeks ago from a massive, unexpected heart attack. Heart disease in Southeast Asians, in Indians, is very prevalent. Statistics show that more than half of us will have some form of heart condition, whether that's a blockage or a heart attack or some form of heart disease at some point in our life. It is the one thing that is completely preventable most of the time, not completely, highly preventable. So for me now, 5 years ago, I went to the doctor. I found out I had high cholesterol and high blood sugar. What? I'm 40 years old. What are you talking? That's ridiculous. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I looked into the information. I looked into Southeast Asians can have this, right? Fortunately for me personally, it's not in my family, but it's around me. My brother-in-law's brother had a heart attack. There's so much. It's everywhere. I'm sure you know plenty of people. So here's a simple example, how to be the cause of your life, not the result of it. I can say, okay, I'm happy and healthy and maybe get a heart attack before I'm 60. Or I can find out what I need to do, what exercise, what's the right food, what's a healthy lifestyle, completely changed it. And you won't believe this. In 5 months, I told you I lost weight. All my cholesterol, my blood sugar, everything. Pakka. Perfectly normal. My resting heart rate has gone from 92, which is dangerous levels, to 55, which is athletic levels.
You were at 92.
I was at 92 in January when I got sick, which is way high. Resting heart rate, way too high. Now I'm at 55, 56, which is elite athletic levels. And that's the simplest thing. I've chosen to be the cause of my life, not the result of it. If I get something hard comes and gets me, it's not in my control. But if it is there, I got it. No chance.
So Francis, really nice, that was so brilliant. Okay, so Francis, I'm going to close this session just with a small recap. I really love the way you've changed your life around. One or two of the points that I'm taking, this last one is definitely one of the principal ones. Be the cause of your life, not the result of it. I think that's fabulous. The other thing I liked is the thoughts versus memory. In fact, we call that habit. We respond out of habit rather than out of conscious thought. So reaction versus response. I mean, that's the way we look at it.
Yeah.
So respond. You have to process things in your prefrontal cortex. So that's another part which I picked up, and all those go along with what I'm actually helping people do. Asking better questions, pausing, and sometimes that pause could be very, very crucial at the right time. So pause. I think silence speaks louder than words quite often. So, Francis, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I mean, from the guy I knew as a kid playing snooker and being the nice, funny guy, I always loved having those joke sessions with you, and you have such a nice way of looking at life. But I'm sure mom, dad would be proud. The interesting thing is, I know your mom and dad way better than I know you, but through the youth group, I got to know you a lot. So I'm grateful for that. But this talk has been awesome. And Francis, I'm going to, share this with the rest of the world, and I'm sure a lot of them will learn a lot of things
I
from
appreciate Ian.
the likable, the inimitable, the highly successful, but yet the most grounded guy on the planet. Francis, I wish you well in your balance in life and all the nice things that you're going to do. And I'm sure the next big thing will come out of you at some stage. And so I want to wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ian. Absolute pleasure. Take care, man.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Thanks, man.